In the wake of the Atlantic's outrageous plea for COVID amnesty, and the deluge of anger and scorn it generated, including a pitiless rebuke from yours truly, linked in the description, I've given further consideration to the crimes against humanity that were committed by our governments, corporations, bureaucracies, and medical establishments. I've realised that a refusal to grant amnesty is not enough. A crime against humanity, which the global COVID response most certainly was, demands not only condemnation, but justice. It demands justice and vengeance. I've been criticised for drawing comparisons with the Holocaust, but I make no apology and will continue to make such associations. The comparison is valid, and perhaps even overly generous. In fact, I'm of a mind to make a follow-up video arguing that the scale of the constituted a crime far greater in scope and malevolence than Hitler's genocide ever was. But that's for another day. Today we must address the necessity for justice. After the Second World War, it was agreed by the victorious powers, who went on to form the bulwark of the liberal world order, that the abuses of basic human rights perpetrated by the SS and other elements of the Nazi regime must never be permitted to occur again, and as such, an example must be made of the culprits. The result was the Nuremberg war crimes trials, a reckoning of Germany's top surviving functionaries, which established an important precedent. Much can be read on the Nuremberg trials elsewhere, and I need not retrace this well-trodden path. Suffice to say that many of the defendants were sentenced to life in prison, and others were put to death. By any objective measurement, these are the fitting punishments for those who would seek to deny life and liberty to vast numbers of people. This is what distinguishes a crime against humanity from a regular crime. When you tyrannize one person, society demands a penalty. But that penalty is usually tempered by the acknowledgement that the damage you caused was limited in its scope. When you tyrannize millions of people, you are a monster, and civilized society demands that you be treated as one. By any objective measure, the individuals and organisations that effected the entirely unnecessary and disproportionate responses to the COVID pandemic are tyrants. Furthermore, they can be seen as members of a tyrannical conspiracy, for they acted in concert, very clearly following a centrally orchestrated program, which, as in the case of the SS and the Nazi Party, is an aggravating factor, for it implies premeditation. They are tyrants and criminals. They deprived hundreds of millions of people worldwide of livelihoods, resulting in incalculable misery, including bankruptcy, mental illness, and suicide. They destroyed the world economy, precipitating what is now shaping up to be a global recession to rival that of 2008, if not another Great Depression. They enabled police-state tyranny that saw tens of thousands of citizens brutalized. They segregated society and stigmatized those who questioned the measures. And most damningly, they forced an improperly tested on billions of people under the mendacious misnomer of constituting a mass human of staggering dimensions, for which the manufacturers of the were granted blanket indemnity, underwritten by the tax dollars of the very people on whom the were being tested. These marketed as safe and effective have since been proven to be both, with many hundreds of thousands, if not millions, worldwide. The fact alone that this global flagrantly violated the sacred principle of informed consent as enshrined in the very code of medical ethics spawned by the war crimes trials, the Nuremberg Code 1947, linked in the description, is premise enough for a sequel. This is a crime of previously unimagined proportions. It is a crime against humanity whose scale in its application at least, if not in its manifest result, dwarfs the Holocaust. We shall have to wait and see if there is simply no way of knowing how many millions will from these diabolical in the next 10, 20 or 50 years. Such a crime demands justice and vengeance, not only to punish the perpetrators, but to make an example of them to deter future tyrants from such heinous adventurism. Where then are the tribunals? Where is the collective clamour of the citizenry? Part of the reason we are seeing no such mass mobilisation is the ongoing censorship of voices such as mine. For our numbers are great and our commitment steadfast, but our reach is severely throttled by big tech giants, whose interests are inextricably intertwined with the pharmaceutical complex. Another aspect is that in any war, and war this is, it is the victors who hand down justice. And in this war, the current victors are the pharmaceutical companies, hands down. There is, however, another, more important and more worrying reason. It's simply too much for most people to contemplate. Most do not want to acknowledge that such a crime has taken place. Similar denials were common in the wake of Auschwitz. And it goes beyond simple denial. Such was the effectiveness of the machine's propaganda throughout 2020 and 2021 that many millions became unwitting functionaries of the tyranny, helping to furnish a malignant social enforcement apparatus. And there are countless millions more who simply cannot bear to admit that they were deceived and played for fools. Such is the horrific scale of this crime and the sunk cost in the official cover story, that it has become, like the big banks in 2008, too big to fail. This is all that stands between the people of our world and justice for the crime against humanity that was a vast collective refusal to acknowledge the truth. This is the shield that protects the politicians, the bureaucrats, the feckless medical establishment, and the corporations who engineered the crime. But this shield gets weaker with every person who opens their eyes to the truth and starts speaking out. This will be a war we may have to fight for the remainder of our lives, and it may indeed be one our children need to continue waging after we're gone. But it is a war we must fight. Our duty remains to speak the truth and spread it as far and wide as we are able, and to advocate at every turn in the road for justice. This means having difficult conversations. It means losing friends and even family members. It means voting only for political candidates who support inquiry and accountability for the It will mean marching and protesting, and a degree of discomfort many have become entirely unfamiliar with in the pampered West. It may mean ostracisation and marginalisation, both personally and professionally. But for anyone with a conscience who values their immortal soul, it is not a matter of choice. We must refuse to give an inch on this principle. There can be no amnesty for crimes against humanity. But no amnesty is not enough. There must also be a reckoning. There must be justice. And justice for crimes against humanity demands vengeance also. Those of us who count ourselves amongst humanity are obliged by divine duty to fight for it. To fight, and if necessary, to die. But never to surrender our souls. We must fight on, forever if necessary, until our demands are met. We demand justice. We demand vengeance. We demand Nuremberg 2. Thanks for listening. Please subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any future videos. Please also subscribe to my Substack at jjdawson.substack.com. And if you'd like to keep in touch, please do follow me on Twitter at RealJJDawson. You can also follow me on Getter, Gab and Minds. And of course, if you enjoyed this, please do give it a like and share it about, because it really helps me out.